Hey friends, thanks for joining me again today. So, as you all know, but for the new ones, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make some changes in my life. If you're feeling a little bit slow, a little bit down because of COVID or whatever it might be, maybe it's time for a change. And that's what I decided is I need to make some minor changes in some of my daily routines and habits. So, the last couple of videos I was talking about habits, how habits form, how to break habits and things like that. But in this video today is another one of these problems that I personally have. And if you do, make sure you put it in the comments. What is it that you have an issue with on this? And what I'm talking about is having too much on your plate to do. Yeah, no, not too much on your plate to eat, but too much on your plate to do. So, what do you do with that when you have too much on your plate and there just isn't enough time to do it all? Well, I jotted down a couple things here, so I want to go over my top 5 reasons how to deal with having too much on your plate. And number 1 is write it down. And that's exactly what I did. Like I said, I wrote down the top 5 reasons. So, why do you want to write things down if you have too much to do? Isn't that already too much to do to write something down? No. If you're anything like me, and maybe a lot of you out there, is since we have so much in our heads, so much to do, we tend to forget everything that we need to do. So if you take the time to write it down, either on paper or on your phone, on one of the little notes or something like that. We have sticky notepads, we have sticky notes that we could put all over the place, we have digital sticky notes, everything and anything. Just jot down what it is that you need to accomplish for that day. Some of you may want to make it for a week, but I like to try to jot down the things that I need to do or accomplish for that day. Now that's number 1. Next on the list, number 2, is prioritization. So that means what's the most important thing that you need to get done. It doesn't mean what is the most important. You know what I mean by saying what is the most important. Certain things in life are more important than other things. But what I'm getting at is on that list of yours, if you take a look, you could prioritize it. What needs to be accomplished first in order for something else to get done? As an example, if something on that list is something that is, let's see, on a chain of command or a type of an assembly line, meaning that if I'm slow, it holds up other people or something else. So you should consider that to be a priority because you don't want to hold up somebody else just because you're taking your time or it's going slow. So be sure to put that in a prioritization list that's near the top, if not the top. Some of the other things that you may want to prioritize is it does it have a time limit? Is there an expiration date on it? Do you have to get something done in order for it to be submitted someplace? So those are the types of things that need to be on a priority top of the list. Other than that, you need to take a look at it and decide, well, what is it that's important for today that I don't want to put off until tomorrow? What does it mean for me to accomplish or finish that today? So that's all about prioritization. Again, remember, if somebody else depends on you getting something done, you may want to consider putting that at the top or near the top of your list of prioritizations. Other than that, take a look at that list that you've written out and perhaps put it in order of priority. That helps as well. That way you could check it off as you complete it. Again, prioritization and making a list kind of go hand in hand together because, again, you look at what you've written down, you look at your priorities, and then you check it off, and then you know it's finished so you can move on to the next thing. So number 3 on the list is you don't have to be perfect. Perfection. Sure, we all like to be perfect, and especially for those of us who are artistic. We may want to take control. We may want to have to be as perfect as can be. Wait, not perfect as can be, but perfect. So what you end up doing is maybe you complete this task or whatever it might be in, oh, say a half an hour or maybe an hour or 2 hours. And then you spend another 2, 3, 4 hours the rest of the day trying to perfect something that's so little minute that maybe somebody else just does not see it, but you see it yourself. So that's what I'm talking about as far as perfection. You can let it go. I don't want to say that just good enough is good enough because in most cases it isn't. Just take into consideration again, just like everything else on the priority list, is perfection doesn't have to be that perfection to us. There are times that perfection is needed, something where you are, oh gosh, you're supposed to put 101 rivets on a plane on its wings at 3 inches apart, and you say, it doesn't have to be perfect. Well, no, that one you might want to make perfect. But what I'm talking about for perfection is something that you are doing yourself, something that you might be editing, something that you might be writing down or something like that, where it does not have to be perfect because somebody else may not know it because you're conceptualizing it, you are making it up, or you are creating it. The other people do not know that creation that you're making, but you do. So again, it does not have to be perfect in your eyes. It could be good to the point where it will succeed, or it will succeed at what it needs to accomplish. So again, don't worry about perfection. There are only certain situations where you may want to have something perfect. And like I said, if you're working on something where there are guidelines and it has to adhere to those guidelines, especially when it comes to safety. So perfection, when we are creating something, when it's our creation, when it's in our minds or our eyes, don't worry about it being perfect, because the person next to you or the person looking at it or the person using it, is chances are likely they are not going to know. Number four. Number four kind of has two things on there. So with number four, it is don't take on anything new. You already have plenty on your plate to do, so why put more food? Oh, that's right. That's something different. But you know what? I do see people in buffet lines piling up their plates, and then they don't finish it because there's too much. That's the same situation with this. If you already have plenty to do and you're having to prioritize and make lists and things like that, and you're stressed out about, can I get this done? Can I get that done? What am I going to do? I'm failing because I can't get it done. Don't take on anything new. And the second half of this is a huge thing that a lot of us, me included, have a difficult time saying. And it is the easiest word in the world. And as a child, this is probably one of the first two words we probably learned to say. And it's only got 2 letters. The first one is a 3-letter word. And I'm not talking about yes. You've heard the kids before say, why, why, why. Uh-huh. And then you've heard that other word when you ask them to do something and they say no. So why can't we, as adults or grown-ups, say no? Just like when we were a kid, we didn't want to do something, we said no. Now, it's rare that we say no. We kind of do the, okay, let me get to it. I can do that for you. No. Just say no. Don't do it. Because what happens is, if you say, and if you leave it an open-end thing where you don't tell them no, and you say, well, I think I can do it, or let me try to get to it, they're going to depend on you getting to that. And now you've just put more on your plate and it's more difficult to do. It is best to say no. That way you don't let yourself down and you don't let that other person down. So just say it right now. Say it. No. N-O. 2 letters. No. All right, we've come to the end. Number 5. These are my top 5 things on how to handle having too much on your plate, too much to do. And number 5 is let it go. Just let it go. For the most part, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of your life. Just learn to let it go. So if you have so much and too much on your plate, and you know that it is going to be impossible for you to get to everything, let it go. Or if you need to, drop it down on the priority list, put it onto the next day or something. Again, going along with the priority list, writing things down and everything, and just saying no. Try not to add to your list. Accomplish, finish something, and then you can possibly add to it. Some of us like to finish everything that we have on the list and then we move on to the next. But letting it go is another one of those things that's very, very difficult to do as we've grown older. Like I mentioned, no is a word that we were easy to say when we were kids. And as we've gotten older and had more responsibilities, it's become more difficult to say no to someone or even say no to ourselves about doing something. And that's the same thing with letting it go. As a kid, oftentimes we're doing something and then we change gears, we change our mind, and we leave it behind, we go do something different. Again, the older we've gotten, the more responsibilities we've acquired or accumulated, it's become more and more difficult to let things go, whether it be pride or you feel like that you did not accomplish something if you let it go, or it's something to do with that. Learn to let it go, because it's okay to say no, and it's okay to just let it go. You can always come back to it later if you want to. So there you have it. Top 5 things. Let me read them off to you real quick again. And, this is not really in any type of order, but this is the order that I prefer to have my full plate on. So number 1 again is write it down. You see me looking down because I've written it down so I know what I have. Remember when we used to write down a grocery list? If that's what you used to do, because I used to. It was a lot easier. You got things done when you went into a grocery store. You looked at your list, you found it, you checked it off. When we don't go in there with a grocery list, you've heard everybody say, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, because you're going to buy a lot of stuff or a lot of stuff you don't need. Same thing here. Write it down so you know what you have. Prioritize it. Remember, put things that are the most important up on the top of the priority list. If somebody else is depending on it and it's on your list, make sure you put that at the top or near the top. Number 3, don't worry about being perfect or perfectionism. I know that a lot of us who are artists, some of you out there are very artistically inclined, and you like to make sure that things are perfect because it's your design or the way that you are doing it. But remember, the person next to you, the person in front of you, behind you, whoever, they're not going to know your concept of whatever it is that you are doing. So don't worry about it being perfect unless you're working on something that needs to go and adhere to some guidelines or specific guidelines. Like I mentioned, rivets on an airplane, something like that. Number 4, kind of like 2 things, is don't take on any new activities. Don't fill up your plate anymore. I mentioned I used to go into these buffet lines and you see people just piling stuff on their plates. You know they're not going to finish it, and they don't finish it. So don't pile on anything new into your activity list, whatever you need to do. Accomplish what you have on your list that you've written down. And also, to go along with that was just say no. It's easy. If you say no, you're not going to let them down. You're not going to let yourself down. So again, just say no. And that last thing on my list is to let it go. Just let it go. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of you. You have things on your priority list. You know what you need to accomplish first. So if it's something down at the bottom and you can't get to it, take it off that list. Just let it go. It'll make yourself feel better, and you'll be able to come back to it later if you want. So there you have it. Those are my 5 things to do to help with having too much on your plate. So I'm going to go and try to get some sleep later. Remember, my goal for that is 1 a.m. got to get to bed by 1 a.m. I still have not been able to do it, and it's been coming on my second week, but I'm trying. I'm not going to give up. Like I said, as far as breaking habits and making new habits, don't stop if you didn't quite reach that goal. Adjust it and then go back and try to do it. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. All right. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this, please share, like, and subscribe and comment. Thanks again. So long.